Well, I think it's a long story about being banned, and how this banning came about. One has to go back to where it all began in Sophiatown, where politics and the politics of resistance and insurrection at the time had been pulling all sorts of people together. Guys like myself had luckily been converted from the streets, from gangsterism, to politics through the ANC Youth League. I was a member of the Western Area Students Association, and it was at this place where a whole new world opened up for me, outside of the world of gangsterism and fighting. So I had already begun writing poetry at the time, and some of it not very political poetry, but poetry that spoke about the problems of the day. And 1958, I remember, in Sophiatown was quite a big fight that we had with the police. I was, as I said, a gangster fighting in the streets, and the cops were pushing the politicians around, and they didn't have the answer. So we stepped in, the gangsters stepped in, and it was quite something. It was shooting. And then 1960, Sharpeville came. I was also a part of fighting against the cops in a place called Western Native Township, which was opposite to Sophiatown. My brother was one of the PAC members who was detained and jailed. And so a whole lot of political activity circulated in the area. And my poems then, I was the first person, I think, 2 days after Sharpeville, I wrote a poem called Day of Thunder, Day of Blood in the dusty streets of Sharpeville. The thunder roared from Saracen skies, and the blood flowed from black men's eyes when they met the hail of dum-dum. The crying, the calling, the falling, the running of men, women and children, and the cold grey faces of them who spat the thunder and spat the hail and held the thunder, while my people sang, "Return, O Africa, O return. Bitter was that day." So that poem resulted in my being detained in 1963 for about 12 days. Policeman at the time was called Spengler, and that was a form of censorship. And then later on in I'd been writing poetry up to 1968. 1968, SASO was formed. Black consciousness became the predominant ideology. Black culture was now asserted through poems, through plays. And then, obviously, it was my world.